Welcome in to the SOARIN Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Braydon, and I am joined, as always, by the pineapple from down south. No, he does not live under the sea, Alan Pina. Alan, I'm mixing it up a little, and I'm enjoying myself. How you doing today?
Hey, I know it's good to mix it up. I'm doing good as well. I know you are the the man from the north, fit perfectly, and but I've been good. I can't complain. With the weekend now starting, it doesn't get better than that. So I'm doing well, keeping it going each day with a great attitude.
That's you got to do it, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend myself. Should be a good one. Got some fun plans with the wife today. We're gonna go have some fun.
Oh, that's good.
And also got a lot of homework I hope I can get to after we're done recording and I'm done working out after this particular recording. But it is Friday, April 30th. It is almost May. May is almost here, ladies and gentlemen. And it is exciting. The Champions League semifinals first leg is over with. And we won't be talking about that in this particular episode other than to mention that Chelsea and Real Madrid have tied in the first leg, and I have yet to finish the Paris and Man City game, Alan. But how did that end?
I'll just tell you, the comeback Manchester City pulled off. Wow, like I did not expect that, and I think really how they played, they showed that we 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 really wanted. We're tired of saying we can't win in Europe. Now this is their opportunity. So we'll see what leg two has to offer this Tuesday. And I think really it's going to come, it's really going to be a heck of a game now. It's now going to be who wants it more. And remember, only 6 teams have come back being down in the first leg to win the second one. So it has happened, but only 6 of them have come back. So could Paris be the seventh? Well, we're going to find out Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, we will. And for those that watched the Europa League, phenomenal night. Manchester City beats Roma
You mean
6 to
Manchester
2.
United?
Or yeah, United. Sorry, was looking at it wrong. Anyway, Manchester United beats Roma 6 to 2 in a phenomenal game. The other game was Arsenal and I will butcher this name, but Villarreal.
Villarreal.
Yeah,
Villarreal.
Villarreal beats Arsenal 2-1. So phenomenal nights of soccer happening. For those listening in, you're probably wondering, are we going to continue talking about soccer or what are we going to be talking about today? And it's a little bit of a mix-up today. We came in today and a little behind-the-scenes preview. We knew we were recording today. We just didn't fully understand what we wanted to record today. We have our Ulfsteiner episode coming up next. We'll be talking about that next. There's some more research Alan and I both want to do before we both feel comfortable with that one. We know we've been previewing that for a while. Just hang with us. It's coming out soon. It'll come out sometime next week, hopefully. And after that, we're going to be continuing our rivalry series with which teams, Alan? What's our next rivalry?
Well, one of the rivalries I want to go through is the Manchester Derby with Manchester United and Manchester City, especially with the recent years, how now it's gotten to a point where it's even though some will say no way, but it's part of the game. So we will talk about that, and there'll be other rivalries we'll be talking about. So just stay tuned, and we'll keep riding the ship moving forward.
Yeah, we will. So that's kind of a preview as to what's coming out for the next couple weeks. You're probably still wondering what we got coming on today. And we're going to be talking about the impact of the World Baseball Classic, Alan. One of the best competitions in baseball, in my opinion. We're going to talk about it and why it's good for baseball. We're also going to talk about our top 5 athletes with the sports we cover to never win a championship. And we'll go from there. So, yeah, Alan, let's jump right into it. So why don't you explain to our listeners here what is the World Baseball Classic? Because I didn't know what it was until a couple years ago. So let's kind of let
Okay.
people in on the secret because I think
Oh
it's kind
well.
of this weird secret for baseball.
Well, think about when you World Baseball Classic. Think about it as if it was the World Cup of baseball, or you can look at it as the Olympics as well. That's fine either way, but that's what it is. It's basically the World Cup of baseball, like where the best of the best. Like you're not gonna see amateurs in there. That's where you're gonna see major league ball players there. Like the best of the best compete there, and they try to represent their countries very well. And the goal is to not just bring that pride into it, but also to to win the classic. And that's what it really is. Look at it as if it's the World Cup or the Olympics. Either way, it has the same vibe and excitement in when watching the game of baseball.
It really does, Alan. I think there's no understatement there. I think the World Cup or even maybe the Champions League to a certain extent has that same vibe to what this World Baseball Classic is. It's really just where these players, because we all know these players, they come from all over the world and they'll play for their country. Um, Unfortunately, I don't know if Max Kepler ever will represent Germany in the World Baseball Classic just because I don't know if Germany's got a lot of players to format a full team for the World Baseball Classic. But for those that didn't know, Max Kepler is actually from Germany. So when we talk about when we get into the baseball with our first player, international player in the league, we'll definitely be talking about that. But yeah, so Javi Baez, El Mágico, he's represented his country. I want to say it's Puerto Rico, but that feels wrong as I say it.
Actually, I think it is Puerto
Reality of
Rico.
forfeit.
Yeah, I think so too.
It is Puerto Rico. You've had a lot of great players that have been in this classic that really you see a different side of it. And I think that's the other beauty of the World Baseball Classic. Like when you look at these ball players, like yeah, they're great ball players, they're excellent, but when you see them put on their country's uniform, you see a different personality where it's like, okay, I get to showcase other aspects of my game that are not well known, and they carry it over even when they after they're done with their ball club. So you see a lot when they're wearing their country's uniform.
Yeah, and it there's a lot that goes into that, and I think it's really interesting to talk about because there's when you watch. I think the best way to relate what we're talking about now is if you watch the movie Miracle, right? And when you listen to us talk about the miracle on ice in our first few episodes, you can definitely tell that there's a point for the U.S. national team where they come together, they band together, and realize that they're wearing something that's not just about them on their in their uniform. And there's that point where they come together, realize that, and then they just become this team. And you hear players when they represent their countries, they talk about that all the time. And I think that's really important to remember. We talked about it a little bit in our last episode where part of the proposed punishments for these players that were in the Super League was not letting them play on that national team. And Alan and I were so against that. And that this is partly why, because players, they love to represent their team and their country. And when you're in the MLB, you do that automatically by being from where you're from. And we mentioned Javi Baez already. He's being from Puerto Rico. His whole career is in part thanks to Roberto Clemente, who paved the way for a lot of Puerto Ricans to continue to come into the game. And so to have a chance to have Puerto Rico represented in the game, that an all-time great played with Roberto Clemente is truly awe-inspiring, and I think that's why we need to continue to have the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, go ahead. And I do
No.
agree with that. But also, I would even say if you look how it started, the World Baseball Classic, it wasn't like it. Like remember when it's when baseball got voted out of the Olympics by the International Olympic Committee, it changed everything. Like it's like, okay, what's next? What and put into context, like how is baseball going to showcase to the world? Hey, like this is the best, and you can make it to that level too. But I give a lot of credit to Bud Selig and the Players Association during that time in '05 that hey, we're gonna do this World Baseball Classic, and we're gonna showcase the best, and we're gonna this is like pretty much where like it it was like, yeah, it's gonna be great, but also it was gonna be like, okay, we're just gonna roll the dice a bit and see where this goes, because it was like that poking of the bear, like let's do it, but also like let's how far we can push it. And to be honest with you, it was the perfect platform for a lot of these players, a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. Carlos Gonzalez, he's participated and represented Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic, and he just
Hmm.
talked about how it was different for him in a lot of ways of and making it just feel right in a lot of ways. If I remember the quotes that he was saying and what he was and understood what he was saying, like it basically was just an opportunity for them to almost play in their own backyard again. You know,
Yeah.
we got to remember for a lot of these Latin-born players, they leave their homes at age 16, 17, start off in low A, and they don't understand, but they may or may not understand English perfectly. Um, so culture shock and all these things that happen at a very young age, and they might not be able to see their families for quite a long time. And so the World Baseball Classic for them is a way to once they for them to return to their homes and not only see their families and their friends again, but also play for their country in a way they never thought they'd be able to in a long time. So there's something that represents in a lot of ways for them.
Yeah, it does. It just represents that closure. That all right, now I can showcase to my home country. Hey, this is what we have, and we're gonna deliver and try to deliver. And it was. And the teams that jumped right in was the turnout for the first World Baseball Classic in 2006 was unbelievable. Like we mentioned several. You mentioned Puerto Rico, the U.S. obviously joining in, the Dominican Republic joining in, Venezuela, Mexico,
Cuba.
and Cuba. About Cuba, that was the biggest reason why it happened. If you look at Cuba, and I've seen them in the Pan American games, they're basically the New York Yankees. Like they've won pretty much every competition when it comes to the international station baseball. So without Cuba, this tournament wouldn't have existed. Even obviously, you have Japan and South Korea. The manager of Japan at that time, Sadaharu Oh, he mentioned without Cuba, this tournament it would have not been legitimate. And this is a manager who coming from Asia, a legend in Japan, which he holds the Japanese home run record. I think of a 867 home runs, something like that. But he owns it. He said it. When you have someone like that coming from another continent saying, without Cuba, this tournament would have not existed, it shows the impact that Cuban baseball has on the international globe. And it even gave Cuba the opportunity to show, hey, we don't have a lot of baseball, we don't have a lot of major leaguers, but we do have talent, and we're going to showcase it. And that's why Cuba, they made the World Baseball Classic happen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think while there's been quite a bit of Cuban-born players in the league, definitely not as much as you or I would love to see actually be in the league and participate. But there's been a lot. Your very own Dodgers employed a Cuban-born player for a long time, Yasiel Puig,
Yeah,
who I don't know if he's still in the league at this point
he's
anymore.
in Mexico now.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so there, and he was great for the Dodgers. He was instrumental in that World Series run back in
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah, even Yuli Gurriel, he was actually on the first World Baseball Classic team, who's now playing for the Astros. Like he did talk about that, like how it was a big deal. Even the directors were like how the assistants and of others allowed them to go in, even though because of the embargo that is still happening, they couldn't get any prize money. And if you put it into perspective, like just because of what happened politically, it doesn't mean hey we cannot include Cuba. And I'm glad they were included because it's like okay, I want to see how good they are. I've seen okay, they got some pretty good bats, like power hitting players, and yeah, that allowed Cuba to go in and really it just shows the impact that without Cuba, the World Baseball Classic would have not existed, and that is probably huge. The huge thing that we probably at times don't notice. Cuba, when it comes to baseball, they are the Yankees, and when you have a team like that join a tournament like of a big stage in baseball, then it will create interest, it will create opportunities, and it will even create moments where it will never be forgotten.
No, and it definitely won't. Like, there's definitely this major rivalry in the World Baseball Classic between the U.S. and Cuba, and I mean, there's some political stuff that goes on into the U.S. and Cuban rivalry in general, but like when it comes to the playing field, like it's almost as bad as like the Red Sox and Yankees used to get in the early 2000s, and it's just fantastic to watch and really fun to watch. And honestly, Alan, I think that'll be worth its own rivalry series episode. Just how intense that these U.S. and Cuban games can get, and Cubans the Cubans have come out on top a bit more than I bet a lot of Americans would like to admit. but but hey, that's baseball. You never know what's fully going to happen until it happens. And yeah, so there's an intense rivalry there. Um, Japan's always been pretty good in these competitions. So it's just really fun to see just how much baseball is prevalent besides places in the U.S. Like people like to argue with me nowadays when I talk about the World Series, and they go, "Oh, it's not a world. You can't call it the World Series or call yourselves world champions. It's an American-based league. It's an American game." And I'm like, "Excuse me. Let's talk about this, okay? There's Japanese players on a lot of these teams. There's Venezuelans. There's Puerto Ricans. There's Cubans, Dominican Republicans. There's uh, Venezuelans. I probably mentioned. There's Cubans. There's players from all over the world on these teams now. And if you try to tell us that baseball is not a world game, or it's not the World Series is illegitimately called because of the way the title and world champions, let us inform you that a lot of these players, they come from all over the world now. I mean, we mentioned early in the beginning of the episode, Max Kepler. He's from Germany and he plays on the Twins. If the Twins ever win it all, that'll be, well, I think I'll double check this, Alan, but I think that'll be the first European-born player to actually win it all.
Mm, that's interesting. I haven't been aware of that, but it'll be good. Yeah, to have that happen. Someone from Europe winning it, but it's great, and that's the stage that the World Baseball Classic has. And even another thing that it opened my eyes, and I did see the first edition of the World Baseball Classic in 2006. I was 12 when it started. I remember it, and the first game that the U.S. played, I remember they played Canada, and I'm like, oh well, the U.S. they have loaded. Like they have, I remember that team. They had Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr., Chipper Jones. They had Roger Clemens. Um, that's a lot of big time star power there. And I thought, oh, they're gonna beat Canada. The only guy I knew from Canada that was Jason Bay. He was playing for the Pirates at the time. I thought, okay, that's it. And Canada destroyed the U.S. 8-0. When that happened, that's when I realized, this is not going to be where the U.S. is going to come in and win because it's America's pastime. It was going to be like, we're going to see something special. And we did. We did see something special. And especially the second game versus Japan. And I remember there was a documentary on it. I saw it air on MLB Network. They were playing Japan, and the Japanese players that were not in the majors were amazed because they were watching Ken Griffey Jr. bat, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, all those guys just in awe in batting practice. And then there was Ichiro, the great Ichiro, who he was on that team. He sensed this, and this is a Japanese a reporter who covers the Japanese league. Like, he mentions this, and Ichiro brings everybody together. And I don't know the exact words he said, but I'll paraphrase it. But he basically goes like, "Hey, now is not the time to be in awe of the competition. Like, you guys are as good, if not better, than these guys. So you better not look up to them. You better look down on them." And that set the tone for Japan. Like, it really showed that when you have someone like Ichiro, and it even showed another side of Ichiro, that he brought leadership skills. He developed them. And because of that, even though they lost to the US, that game 4-3, that game, however, it gave them the confidence that they needed to get to the final. And it showed, and obviously the US later got eliminated by Mexico, which that entirely changed the classic, where it was like, all right, we're gonna get to see other teams play. And in shock, like, how come the US didn't make it to the final? But that will be a different story. But just for that notion of Ichiro showing that leadership skill, it gets you to know what type of ball player he was, and even you got to know the Japanese players better.
Yeah, I mean, Ichiro is a phenomenal player, and before I continue, I kind of want to backtrack something that I had said earlier in the episode with not knowing something. Thanks to a website called thesporting.blog, it talks about Europeans in the major leagues, and they talk about how some of the major countries from Europe that are big into baseball, and the best ones are in the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, and the Czech Republic. So Max Kepler, if in the next World Baseball Classic, would probably be on Team Germany. Just wanted to backtrack that before I continued with going off of Alan's statement. But yeah, so like, I think it's important to go through and realize a lot of these players, we get to see how good they really are in these settings. And it's really important to realize that these players, they love to play for their country, and they love to be a part of that. So, but yeah, like Ichiro, man, don't be surprised if he shows up on my top 5 list later.
Probably, but seriously, like, at least him leading his team to win the first 2 World Baseball Classics, it got to show, okay, baseball has gone international. You see the impact of baseball. And then even we see upsets in the World Baseball Classic. The Netherlands, you mentioned, in 2010, getting past the Dominican Republic, beating them twice. It's like, it's pretty much, how would I compare this to? It's pretty much if Japan were to beat Argentina in the group stage of the World Cup, eliminating them. Or actually, no, I'll give you one recent. South Korea eliminating Germany out of the World Cup. That's That's probably how I could compare it to. Just because like the Netherlands, I thought, they're a soccer country, like that would be no problem. The Dominican Republic will destroy them. Dead wrong. I was like, what the heck? And then I realized that was the beauty of the classic. You get to see these upsets. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how in the world did this happen? And I think for those that haven't watched the World Baseball Classic, tune into it. Like, I know there's none this year just because of COVID, but
And
when
the
it comes,
Olympics are this year, and baseball's in the Olympics this year, so that's probably taking precedence.
oh, okay, yeah. But if we're talking World Baseball Classic, watch the past ones. You will be amazed. Like, wow, this did happen. Yeah, and yes, it did. These upsets, like, it's probably the one sport where like it's all about, hey, you gotta set the tone. You gotta not be confident because just one hit could change the complexity of the game. So it's just great to see when there's upsets in that stage. Then you're like, okay, I want to know these guys. Where do they come from? Where do they play? And it gets you going to cheer for them, even if at the end they get eliminated. But still, it just gives you a sense of like, okay, I want to root for the underdog.
Yeah, for sure. And Alan, I don't know if you know this, but obviously you know who Didi Gregorius is.
Yes,
Did you know he's from the Netherlands?
yeah, I knew that.
I did not. So that when you were mentioning Team Netherlands upsetting Germany, you said they is who they upset.
No, they upset it. It was in 2010. They
Mm,
upset it the Dominican Republic.
yeah. So I don't know if he might have been on the Team Netherlands at that point. I do
If
not know
not,
for
I'll
sure
tell you who it was.
because he made his major league debut in 2012. So he would have been in the minors. So I don't know if he would have
Uh,
been on Team
I
Netherlands.
don't know, but I'll tell you who it was, and they interviewed him. Kenley Jansen, the closer for the Dodgers.
Oh, I didn't know he was from the
Yeah, he
Netherlands too.
and the thing was he was a catcher for that team. I did not know that he was a catcher. I'm like,
Yeah, he was a catcher turned pitcher.
yeah, absolutely. I did not know that. I'm like, whoa, I did not know that about him, and he performed very well, especially like when he got Willie Taveras out for stealing second. Like it was just it was just a confidence booster for the Netherlands. Like playing spoiler in that World Baseball Classic. Like that's where you're gonna see teams like that just want to spoil the party for a traditional baseball powerhouse. And that's great about the game. Like you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
see these spoilers, and from there, what happens in those World Baseball Classics, and even to those teams that get first place that are not in the major leagues, and it's this is the beauty of it. A lot of them, the following year, you'll see them in the major leagues, and that's where you will appreciate them more. You could talk about Daisuke Matsuzaka pitching wonderfully versus Cuba. Cuba couldn't even hit anything against him. Then a year later, he wins a World Series with the Boston Red Sox. You could say Kusuke Fukudome with the Cubs, Uemura when he was with the Rays, and then the following year, Yu Darvish closing out in 2010. You see him now; he's with the Rangers now. He's been with the Rangers. The who else has been Dodgers, I think, Cubs.
He's on the Padres right now.
Now he's with the Padres. Yeah, so he's bounced around, but all of that happens because of the World Baseball Classic. You see him on the majors, and you get to see. Oh, I remember that guy. I remember pitched. He pitched great. Or I'm like, oh, I remember that guy. He hit those key hits for Team Japan or Puerto Rico. Like I remember that. Yeah, yeah, and that shows what baseball can do. Like just produce great players on the world stage, and these scouts, they're gonna be like, how come we don't have this? Let's get them, and that's the beauty of it.
It really is, man. And like, I don't know what else to really say on the World Baseball Classic other than, in a way, I'm kind of sad it's not happening this year. But in a way, we also get it because come June, we're going to be previewing our favorite sports in the Olympics. And you better believe we'll be mentioning baseball. So I think one thing I think that really that Bryce Harper mentioned in a starting nine interview he gave was if you really want baseball to grow, is have your major leaguers participate in the Olympics and allow that because all the other big four, well, big three, the NBA and the NHL specifically, they allow their major league talent to participate in the sport, and look what that's done for these sports. It's helped them grow internationally. And
Yeah.
I think having, imagine how fun it would be, if this was your USA starting lineup in the 2021 Summer Olympics. I have no idea batting order or anything, but like lead off, or let's just say Mike Trout. Okay, batting behind him, Mookie Betts, Christian Yelich. Who else would be on that team?
Freddie
uh,
Freeman.
no, Freddie Freeman, Nolan Arenado, uh, Trevor Story. Uh, list goes on and on. But imagine like it basically be the All Star game, but all in one team. So, and that just sounds exciting to me. And I think that if baseball were to really do that, think of we have the three greatest outfielders in the game currently, of Max, not Max, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, and Mookie Betts. Great, phenomenal power hitters, contact hitters, and they all are roaming our outfield, like in the Olympics. Like, how cool would that be? We already know Mike Trout's the best in the game. Mookie Betts is close behind him, and for me, I would put Bryce Harper on that list somewhere. So, and then obviously, you have Nolan Arenado, greatest third baseman in the game at third base. Uh, I'm sure there we can just that'd be a fun discussion for another episode. But like, there's just imagine like seeing Mike Trout, Mookie, and these guys that we love to see. Just imagine them on the world stage showing off baseball to a world audience in the Olympics, and just how amazing that would be. And my mouth kind of waters at that thought.
And I think there will be a time where that happens. I know not a lot of these owners want to let go of their players, but it probably will take someone, a commissioner who thinks above and beyond the game of baseball, that wants to see, okay, let's go international. And even though it has made efforts for that, but it's going to take someone who is like, you know what, like let's make our game grow. Like let's be in the Olympics. Like we look at the NBA sending their players there. It's brought a lot of growth to a lot of nations. Hockey, you can mention the same thing. Even soccer, even though soccer you can only allow three players to be over 23,
Mm-hmm.
but still, if there's a way for if baseball adapts either the soccer rule where they can get three players to that are over 23 to get there, or three major leaguers, whatever, it could happen. But I think it's going to be a long time
Mm-hmm.
before we see major league ball players in the Olympics.
No, I think so too, and I think it might take maybe even the next Olympics at least before it happens. And my mind was still reeling on like a team. Okay, so here's the starting rotation for you. If Clayton Kershaw's not retired, he'd be the number one in that rotation. Behind him, Jacob DeGrom. Behind him, uh, I had it and then I lost it. But like those would be your 1-2 punches in your starting rotation. Um, Garrett Cole in the 3 spot. Like already 1-2-3, we won the first 3 games. Unless like the other baseball happens. But like with how phenomenal those pitchers are and the lineup we'd have behind them, like that's just going to be an amazing game to watch, man.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah,
could
it will
arguably put like Walker Bueller in the 4 spot and be just fine, or just for having teams, or just to try and get a lot of the teams represented. Like I'd have to look more into this. So maybe what we do is we research this and we'll put a graphic out of our dream teams for a U.S. born lineup, and we can Alan, you could do it for Mexico too, and we can go from
Yeah,
there.
it'll be interesting how these teams will be made up of just major league ball players in in the Olympics. So it's gonna be
And
intense.
I think Bryce Harper is right. You know, that is the best way to grow the game. Baseball right now, all they say is we want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. Implementing these rule changes, that's not how you grow the game, man. Okay, get this is like maybe 3 weeks away from an episode that we talk about, but get rid of blackout restrictions. Okay, I am in Idaho and I can't watch my team play because of blackouts. Like that's ridiculous. Like I can't go. The whole point of buying the package is so I can watch those games without having to go to the stadium. Like I can't physically go to the stadium because I don't want to drive 9 hours when I'm in school to go see a game. Like I can't physically do that or afford that, but I can afford the TV package. Yet I can't watch my team play unless it's on replay and the game's over. Like, and it's just not as fun as watching it live. So yeah, you can tell I have a lot of thoughts about this. We'll get into that another
Yeah,
day.
that'll be some other time. More of a marketing uh episode on that.
And maybe we'll bring in Braydon Toro, a student in sports marketing with Purdue Global, and have him give his thoughts on this subject too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Alan, I think we've talked a lot about the World Baseball Classic, and we kind of talked about major leaguers in the Olympics. I think it's time we start talking about our top 5 athletes with the sports we cover to never win a championship.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have some soccer athletes. Mine's probably going to be baseball and hockey heavy, just because that's kind of the sports I kind of know a bit more. But yeah, so let's start off. How do you want to do it? Do you want to go 1 through 5, or do you want to go 5 through 1? Let's start at the bottom and work our way up.
But before we start, I'll explain how do we got talking about this. So you ready for me to explain it, Braydon?
Yeah, let's go for it. And I think, honestly, before you get to it, I honestly think we could, if we have time and we can think of more players as we go, we could even do a top 10.
Yeah, either way. But
we'll start with the top 5 and we'll go from there.
Okay, we'll do that then. But we'll get into how this came about. I was watching on ESPN called First Take. And the host of it, the co-host of it, Stephen A. Smith, mentioned his top 5 athletes who have never won a championship. And he mentioned his list was pretty interesting. He mentioned one active player, Carmelo Anthony, and I was like, he could still get a championship if he's in the right team. But it got me thinking, you know what? Who are the top 5 athletes who, in our opinion, are like, they were so close? And that's where I sent this over to Braydon and obviously to Toro from Noble Sports Guy. And what do you guys think of it? And it was a great discussion. So I was like, let's talk about this in our new episode today. And that's how we are where we're at right now.
Yeah. So Alan, why don't we start from 5, work our way up to 1? I mean, there's no really ranking in this. It's just a way to do it. Yeah. Who do you got in your number 5 spot?
Okay, my number 5 spot, I would go with John Stockton.
Yeah.
John Stockton twice in a row in the NBA Finals. I understand they lost to the Bulls, they lost to Michael Jordan, but in reality, if you ask me, 98 would have probably been their best shot. And the reason why, even though we were down 3-1, they won Game 5. Game 6, they had it. And obviously they blew it. But then later when I saw The Last Dance, the Bulls were like we got to finish it. Like there's no tomorrow. Because they never said, if they never said this, but I got the feeling out of it. Had they lost Game 6 in Salt Lake City, the Jazz would have won Game 7, they would have gotten their championship. They probably would have been the first team to come. They would have been the first team to come back 3-1 in an NBA Finals to win it.
Mm-hmm.
That it would have changed. Legacies would have changed completely. I don't know if we would have viewed how we would view Michael Jordan, and then how we will look at John Stockton. Even though he's the greatest point guard of all time, obviously Magic is the greatest, but with John Stockton getting one, who knows what would have happened, and legacies could have been changed forever. But that didn't happen. So John Stockton to be number 5.
No, like I'd agree with that. And I think, my dad would probably agree with that too. Like that 98 team was one of the best Jazz teams ever in recent memory. And my dad, as a big Jazz fan, he would have loved to see him win that championship. And I think, honestly, the Jazz might have a decent shot this year, but I don't think with the West being wide open, with the Lakers not really being themselves lately. So the Jazz might actually have a chance to win it all again this year. So we'll have to wait and see. But but yeah, like I'm sure my dad would agree. That 98 team was the best shot the Jazz have had in a long time.
Absolutely.
All right. So number 5 for me is I'm going to go baseball here, and I'm going to put in Todd Helton. For me, he's what inspired me in a lot of ways to become a baseball player. He's one of my favorite players of all time. While he did play in the championship, we did get swept by the Red Sox that year. But like the best team that probably had a shot, that he was still on, was, if not the 2007 team, was 2009. But they fell out of the playoffs that year too. So, but yeah, like I think personally, Todd Helton's number 5 on my list, just because one of what he means to a lot of people in Colorado and what he meant for the game of baseball. One of the greatest first basemen in the game of his era. A lot of pitchers, they hated to go up against him. The Cruz effect didn't necessarily seem to bother him as much. His road home splits were fairly similar. And I know I have my purple tinted glasses on when I say this, but he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I think in due time he will be in the Hall of Fame. I was amazed saying you picked Todd Helton. I was like, he had only one World Series appearance, but granted, I get it. He's your guy. I bet if Todd Helton was in front of you, you probably would cry. And I'm saying this as a complimentary because it's true. Knowing you for that long, yeah, you would cry of joy. But I could see why Todd Helton. Okay, it's a fair argument.
And like, I know I have a lot of my nostalgia playing in that role too, but like, if you also look at a lot of the teams he was on, other than the early 90s when he was a rookie and arguably could have run Rookie of the Year, and with Larry Walker and a lot of the Blake Street Bombers as they were fizzling out, like, other than those teams, 2007 and 2009 were his best shot to actually go in and win it. And it's because I didn't think I'd get into this with this, but like, the Rockies, they just don't ever like to put on a very competitive product on the field in their history, and it's ridiculous. Yeah. But
we know that. There's an episode
don't get me started on that, please.
Check it out. Check it out. It's the MLB preview. Check it out. That's when he goes bananas on it. But yeah, like, it's understandable why with Todd, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because like, honestly, like of his era in baseball, he's never been associated with the steroids because he was in the steroid era. But like, so putting that aside, like, whether or not he did them, I don't really care. But he's one of the very few that, regardless of league, sport, stuck with his team his entire career. He only played for the Rockies. Mm-hmm. And that for me means something. It means whether or not you're actually like truly, in the GOAT discussion, you should be a part of, recognized as one of the best athletes of all time. Just because you stuck with the team through thick and thin. You took pay cuts, some probably, I don't know. I'd have to look up that, but like he did what he could to help that team and lead that team. And look at what's happened at first base for the Rockies since 2017 when he retired. It's not been the same, or was it 2013? Either way, when Helton retired, we've had a hole at first base that, for some odd reason, the organization just refuses to fill. So
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, so Alan, who's number 4?
Number 4 for me, in baseball, I would go with the great Jim Tomy.
Good pick.
Jim Tomy, and man, he's one of I don't know how many players to hit 500 home runs. The power hitter, the guy clean through and through. And here's the thing: he played on perhaps one of the greatest '90s teams, the Cleveland Indians '90s team. Well, it just wasn't him. You had guys like Omar Vizquel, Albert Bell.
I want to say Grady Sizemore, but I feel like that's wrong.
No, the '90s, Sandy Alomar Jr. Those the '90s teams, and 2 World Series appearances. 2 couldn't get it done. The first one, they were playing the Braves. Like the Braves, they were like that at that time. They were just like
no one could have beaten the Braves in that World
you
Series.
couldn't beat the Braves. Their starting pitching was unbelievable.
My Rockies ran into the Braves a couple times in that round.
Yeah. So there was the Braves. But 97 against the Marlins. And only the Marlins have been in the majors for 4 years already. And they had the lead. And at the end, Edgar Renteria made perhaps one of the top 5 game-winning hits in World Series history. And it shot Cleveland, and obviously, like Jim, he talks about it. Like he says, I rarely talk about it. I don't want to talk about it because it was that bad. They were just getting the trophy, ready to go, celebrate, and then it transfers over from the Indians locker room to the Marlins locker room, and they've never recovered from that. And this is not Jim Tomey's fault. It also it had to do a lot with like they didn't get the pitching, and you'll know this name, John O'Dowd.
Yeah.
He used to be in the assistant GM for the Indians. He talked about it wasn't none of these players' fault. The only reason why we didn't win the World Series, not just that year, but I would say moving forward during that time, was they never got a starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what derailed the team. And with Jim, he a great hitter. Like he would be one of those guys. If I'm looking for power hitting, get him. And he was an integral part of that team. One of the heart and soul, but never couldn't get over the hump. So Jim Tomey, twice. That's why he's number 4 in my category.
Yeah, I'd say that's a real good pick, Alan. And I think Jim Tomy should be discussed as one of the greatest baseball players of all time, I think.
Yeah.
His impact on the 90s was phenomenal. And what he did for Cleveland and what he meant for a lot of Cleveland fans is still impacting that city and that baseball team. So, like phenomenal baseball player. Honestly, could have won it in '97, but miracles happen. Just ask Scott Michaels.
They do happen.
So, coming in for number 4 for me, I'm going to go another great Jazz of the 90s with Karl Malone.
Karl Malone, yeah.
One of the best duos of the 90s was John Stockton and Karl Malone. And one of the great, I don't know if he was power forward or what his forward position was.
Yeah, he was a power forward.
But he was a power forward, so like one of the best power forwards in the game. Had a stint with the Lakers later on in his career. I wouldn't be surprised if that was in an effort for him to try and push him.
Pretty much 04.
Yeah, to win that ring.
Went there to win a championship.
But he never did. So, things happen in careers. Sometimes all greats, they never win it. And Karl Malone is one of them. Like, my dad, he still talks about those when we talk basketball. He still talks about the Karl Malone, John Stockton era
Yeah.
of Jazz and just how phenomenal those were to watch and how great of a teams those guys had.
Yeah, I do agree.
So yeah, Alan, who you got coming in at number 3?
It was tough who to pick.
I know, right?
It was tough who to pick, but my number 3 guy, I was just watching it, Reggie Miller.
Mm.
And the reason why I say this was like, man, he was those Pacers teams that he was the leader of. They were great teams, great teams. The problem was like he he had to deal with some of the greatest teams. Like he only made one finals appearance against the Lakers, which they had Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal like on their dominant prime, and with Phil Jackson coaching in his first year with them, it's like, how are you going to beat him? But he tried. He was on teams where they were close to making the the conference finals. No, I mean the NBA finals. Like, but he had to deal with the Knicks in '94
Wait,
conference finals.
the Knicks were good.
Oh, they were with Patrick Ewing. With Patrick Ewing, yes.
I know.
Like they had to deal with them, and they lost them in the conference finals. Even though they beat them the '95, however, they dealt with the Magic with Shaquille O'Neal 7 games, but they lost to him. They just couldn't find that momentum going. And then in '99, they were the number 2 seed in the East. And guess who they bumped into? The Knicks, which were the number 8 seed. And the 4-point play by Larry Johnson that crushed the Pacers. And it was just heartbreaking to see, like, again, a third time in a row, questions like, is he ever going to get to the finals? He did, lost to the Lakers. But if you ask me, his best shot would have been 2004. That year, the Pacers were loaded with Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, or Metta World Peace now, who was the defensive player of the year. You had Jamal Tinsley at the point. Those Pacers teams were loaded. They had, I think they had either the best record in the NBA or the second best record in the NBA. But they were a heck of a team. They faced another great defensive team, the Detroit Pistons, and great game, great series. But it was Detroit who, because of their tenacity, got through the Pacers and obviously beat the Lakers. And I believe if the Pacers, I actually rooted for the Pacers in that series, would have beaten the Pistons. I know I'm going to get some slack probably from my wife saying this, but it's just my opinion. They would have beaten the Lakers because that year it came down to defense. That defense was going to win championships, and yeah, that was probably his best opportunity to win a title in 2004, and we would have looked at Reggie Miller differently. Obviously, Reggie, a Hall of Famer, one of the great shooters of all time. Obviously, Steph is number 1, but Reggie was the pioneer of the three-point shooting. So Reggie Miller, like, he was close, one NBA Finals appearance, but he could have been in probably 2 or 3 NBA Finals. So that's why, to me, Reggie Miller is number 3.
Yeah, I think Reggie Miller is obviously one of the greatest of all time of his era. And for me, based on listening to your argument, it almost sounded like the Todd Helton argument I was giving you. Like, I know they're different. Like, I know they're different, and Reggie Miller's on a whole level playing, but like, just the similarities, like, you know, like Helton's early career was towards the end of the Braves '90s run, you know, and then he had the 2000s with a lot of great teams and rising up. The Padres were pretty good, so like, you know, like there was, and I think we'll find the more we examine a lot of these players' careers, there's going to be some similarities with a lot of the
Yeah, and I
arguments we
do
lay
agree.
out.
Like, both stayed in one team, small market teams, and that's why they are they're what's it called, embraced
Mhm.
by their teams. Like they're always going to mention, yeah, but Reggie's teams were unbelievable, and yeah, like he put Indiana on the map because of it.
He really did. Like we probably know of Indiana today because of him. You know.
Yeah, absolutely, and it
So
helped that he was a loudmouth. It helped. He
that
liked the trash talk. It helped. It helped
does help
seriously.
sometimes.
It does help. He did it to get himself going, and also he did it to antagonize his opponent. So there was a purpose behind his trash talking. There was, and absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he should be recognized as one of the all-time greats too, and I think that's what this list shows is there's just because you win championships that doesn't necessarily mean you're the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
There's other players that should be recognized as well, and I think that's awesome what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Alan, I'm going to give our first hockey one. I know he's technically still considered active and in the league, but he's had some open heart surgeries and he may or may not retire. And that's Henrik Lundqvist.
Oh, Henry Lundqvist.
Yeah, Lundqvist.
Okay.
He one of the greatest goalies we've ever seen play the game. I'd put him up in that tier with Patrick Waugh and a lot of those all-time great goalies in the NHL. I know I'm a little partial because he's from Sweden, and I like my Swedes in the NHL. But yeah, just he's one of the all-time great players, and goalies especially. And he backstopped a lot of the great Rangers runs. And if the Rangers had to let him go for cap reasons this past year and to try and get some new guys the opportunity. So, and he was okay with that, and he signed with the Capitals. But shortly after that, he had to go get open heart surgery, and he was starting to work out and do all these things, and all of a sudden he had to go back and do something else. He had a setback, so I don't know if he's ever going to fully return to playing hockey. I think he's debating right now whether or not he's going to retire, and if he does retire soon, I think he should be on this list. Whether or not he does win it all or whatnot, like who knows if he sticks with the team that's going to win it all or not. Like part of me kind of wants him to go to the Avalanche just to say we have two of the greatest goalies of all time on the team. But like Henrik Lundqvist should really be on this list because of what he's done for NHL and what he's done for a lot of people. And he gave New York a lot of hope for a lot of those years. And it's kind of sad that New York could never put it fully together to win it all.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Those teams, they could have gone to several Stanley Cups, but yeah, like they just, you mentioned it, couldn't get their act together, and really didn't try to accommodate him so that the team could succeed. But we know that he did everything he could, and you can't blame him for that.
No, you can't. And honestly, like there's only so much the goaltender could do. The defense and the forwards, they had to do stuff too, and they didn't do enough. That's clearly stated. So yeah, Alan, who do you got coming in at number 2?
Before you do that, is there a way that you can research for me how many Champions League final appearances has Juventus been in? Because the next guy I'm going to mention, he's one of the all-time greatest goalkeepers in soccer, the best, and that is Gianluigi Buffon. Yes, the guy, he has whatever trophies you can think of, he's won them. He's won the Serie A titles multiple times. He's won the Coppa Italia championships multiple times. He's won the Super Coppa Italia multiple times. He's won the World Cup. Like he was one of the co-captains of the World Cup in 2006. But the Champions League, he could never. Those teams could never get to hoist that trophy, and unbelievable. Like he grew one of the best goalies. See, he's one of those goalies that like you have to game plan as far as where you want to score the goal because he's he's just gonna stop it no matter what. He's a determined goalkeeper. But those Juventus teams he was a part of he was there in 2001 and he currently is in it. He's back in it again, but they couldn't never get over the hump in the Champions League. They made the finals in '03 versus AC Milan, heavy favorites to win it. They lost to AC Milan. Then it takes them a while for Juventus to get back into the mix, and but then 2015 they face Barcelona. That's when they have Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Neymar, the three best attack during that period. Lost to them 3-1. Then you face Real Madrid 2017. They lost 3-1. So it was just a tough heartbreak. And then almost making a comeback three in against Real Madrid only to lose and get expelled. That was his last game with Juventus. Then going to Paris in 2019 thinking, oh, I'm going to finally get a championship. They lose in the round of 16 to Manchester United. And it was just a shocker, like thinking, I don't think I know he's still active, but to me, he is the one guy. If he wins the Champions League, his legacy would have been, oh, he's the best goalkeeper ever. And I would put him, even though he's right next to Iker Casillas, they're both equal, but the Champions League, like, it would have changed big time. But still, he's mentioned as the best goalkeeper ever. But that Champions League, just those Juventus teams could never get it together in the finals.
Yeah. I found, looking at the UEFA website, I've seen they've won it twice. They won it in 95, 96, and 84 and 85.
What about runner-ups? How many times have been runner-ups?
Let's see. So I'm going to show you my screen here, Alan, because I'm not entirely sure how to understand what I'm saying here.
Okay. That's no problem.
All right. So we're looking at Juventus here.
Juventus. Okay. Okay. He started in 2003, 2001. Okay. That was his first one. 03. He was there. Then it was 16, 17, and then 14, 15. Pretty much he's been to only 3 Champions League finals, and all 3 he's lost them. His teams have lost them.
Yeah. In total, Juventus as a whole club has lost 6 Champions League.
Yeah, he's been on 3 of them. Half. Which shows you, like, Juventus, a great team in Italy, but Europe with 2 Champions League titles. That's good. But still, I think...
It's not terrible.
Yeah, they probably should have won more.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with when you have a goalkeeper like Luigi Buffon, you're not going to find them every day. Mm-mm. You're not. So that's why, to me, he's number 2 for the simple fact of the Champions League. I know he's won the most important ones, like the leagues and the World Cup. But when you're at Champions League, it just shows you that, hey, you are the best in the world, and also you are the best in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, so I won't, in my list, I don't have any soccer players, unfortunately, just because I just barely recently started playing soccer, so I don't know enough about it. But coming in at my number 2 is another baseball player, baseball great, and I'm going to put in Barry Bonds. Yeah. Actually, hold on, let me double check something.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So, so Barry Bonds, home run title, one of the greatest home run hitters ever. He played in the 2003 World Series against the Angels in
2002.
2002. Sorry, and arguably, if you ask me, the Giants could have won that World Series.
Yeah.
They probably should have. When you look at the lineup they had versus what the Angels had on paper, it was a Giants victory all the way. But that's why you play the games. And for whatever reason, Barry Bonds' hitting always seemed to go down in the playoffs. He never could hit that mega home run as much as he could during the regular season as he did during the postseason. I think he'd get in his head a little bit about that. But that's speculation on my part. I don't know for sure. Playoffs is just a different atmosphere in general. So that
he did very well that season, that postseason. He really did. I don't know. I think he still owns the record for most home runs in the postseason. I think he still does, or is tied with Chase. I think with Chase Utley, who almost broke that record in 09. But he had a heck of a postseason that year, 2002. I remember that very well, and yeah, I do agree. He even had other opportunities with Pittsburgh, with the Pirates, especially 93, where they had a 2-0 lead and game 7, one win away, and instead the Braves made one of the biggest comebacks, which basically it was the Francisco Cabrera hit. Boom, scored a run to tie it, and then Sid Bream just running crazy, I think, from first, slid home safely. The Braves are in the World Series. So if it wasn't for the Atlanta Braves, Pittsburgh would have probably been in the World Series, and it would have been in Barry Bonds' he would have gotten there earlier than 02.
Yeah, so on MLB's website, the one I'm looking at, they don't even have Barry Bonds on MLB's postseason home run leaders. Manny Ramirez is number 1, Bernie Williams number 2, and number 3 is Derek Jeter. Mickey Mantle's 6 on the list, with tied with Jose Altuve. Carlos Correa is 9th with 17.
How many?
With David are 17.
Who's the old time again?
Manny Ramirez.
How many did he hit?
29.
Okay, I was just talking in one postseason.
He has 8.
Who?
Barry Bonds. Yeah, he has 8.
Oh, okay. So he still leads it in that category in one postseason.
I don't think so. Let me double check.
Or if not him, or he's tied with Chase Utley, one or the other.
Number 1 is Randy Arozarena with 10.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Thank you.
Yeah, right behind him is your very own Corey Seager with 8. Nelson Cruz has 8. Carlos Beltran has 8. Barry Bonds has 8. And then after that, it's Jose Altuve with 7, and Daniel Murphy with 7, and Jason Worth with 7, BJ Upton with 7, and Troy Glaus with 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes sense. But still, he owned it pretty much for several
He was in
years.
that discussion for a while until Randy Arozarena came along and was like, how about no?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right, Alan, who you got coming in at number 1?
Steve Nash.
Good pick.
Steve Nash. And look, I saw him play, going to the Suns games, most exciting point guard. Heck, even my mom loved Steve Nash just because how he passed the ball to others, keeping everyone involved. But man, like, he had to run. He had to face the Spurs when he was in Dallas and then Phoenix. And those teams like that he was in, he could have like never got to the NBA Finals. Like, I would say, had they gone to the NBA Finals, they would have won, no question. I don't know. I don't think if they would 07, the Cavs of LeBron James would have not beaten Steve Nash, because he was just to game plan for Steve Nash to stop him. You had to have like a special defender. The Spurs had it, but not the Cavaliers. And I would even go into there's 03, There's 05, 07, even 2010, where they faced Kobe and the Lakers when they beat the Celtics, unfortunately. But Steve Nash, the great leader, Hall of Famer, now coaching the Nets, um, never could get it. It's not his fault, but it was just how the game was played. If the Suns were playing today, how they are, how they were constructed, oh, they would have won a championship. Absolutely. No
And
question.
he
I
might
think,
not have won as a player, but he might win as a coach this year. So
oh, well, probably, but that's another subject because you know my opinion on the Nets, but that's for another time. But he does have that opportunity as a coach, but as a player, like if he was playing with those Suns teams today, they probably would have won a championship. They probably, to be honest, um, they probably would have given the Warriors a series and probably beat them. But that's why you play the game, and he played in an era where big man was still important, and that's something I learned in the regular season. Yeah, you could play fast, 7 seconds or less, which that's how the Suns played. But when you come into the playoffs, the game slows down. It becomes more physical, and this is where the big men take over. And there was no answer to stopping Tim Duncan. None. No, there was no answer to stop him, and that's why he has the championships that he has, and Steve doesn't. But I still don't discredit what he has done for the game, what he has done to show that hey, you can play at a fast pace and also share the ball, the importance of that. But Steve Nash, man, there were times I was disappointed because I did want to see Phoenix get a championship. I did, and it's part of. And I'm saying this because I saw him play several times, going to those Suns games. They were fun to watch. They were exciting, and even it was just one of those players that I even wanted to meet. I never got a chance to meet him. I wish I could to tell him like, hey, like that's one of the reasons I got into basketball. Like besides like being a big man and all, but I was like, oh, I can dribble like Steve Nash. Like if I wanted to try to get the ball up and down the court, I can do that. Okay. And it got me going. That basketball was all about finding the right your teammates and get them involved. So to me, Steve Nash is number one.
yeah, I mean, he was a great player, and he's been a really good coach. And I think he honestly deserved to win a championship, but unfortunately, that just never happened. Um, the Suns were a great team while he was there, so it's kind of hard to go against that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, Steve Nash, great all-time basketball player for sure. So I'm kind of torn on who I want to pick number one, Alan.
You're
Um,
torn between whom?
so I want. I was thinking Ryan Miller, um, who just announced that he's retiring at the end of this season. Um, he's never won a championship, and he's one of the greatest American-born uh, goalies in the NHL ever to play the game. Um, or yeah, so I'm kind of leaning that way. Or let me.
Man, he is really taking his time on this, ladies and gentlemen, because it's hard.
It is, and
It's hard.
so I'm tied between him and Ichiro, because I'd mentioned he might be on my list, and honestly, I think Ichiro deserves a mention on this list with everything he's meant for the game of baseball, the things he's done for the game. He revolutionized a lot of things. He showed that contact hitters still have a place in today's game, and honestly, like he's one of the best contact hitters ever to play the game. And honestly, like I'd love to meet Ichiro too. You know, like Ichiro is one of the best baseball players of our childhoods, Alan. Like he got, I want to say it was his 3,000th hit, Alan. When he was with Miami Marlins, he got his 3,000th hit. Where did he get his 3,000th hit?
Was it where you live?
Yeah, Coors Field.
Wow. You said were you there or not?
No, I think I was in Sweden at the time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so he got his 3,000th hit in my own backyard of Coors Field. And he's truly one of the greatest, as we were talking about with the World Baseball Classic. He's one of the greatest baseball players of all time. If not ever, at least he's the greatest Japanese-born player of all time, in my opinion. So, and he's paved the way. He wasn't the first Japanese player in MLB, but he certainly paved the way for a lot of other Japanese players to come in.
Absolutely. I do agree with that. Like his showcase allowed the players I mentioned. Well, we talked about Japan in the World Baseball Classic. I do agree with that, and we still see it today.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I think he's my number one, and then he'll be 0.5 on this list, which is higher than number one on this list for me. And coming at one will be Ryan Miller. I think they both need to be honored and recognized. Ryan Miller, he might not even get another shot at it, but he said he's retiring at the end of the season. So I think regardless, he should be honored as one of the greatest players to never win one. Especially because goaltending from the States isn't necessarily all the greatest in the NHL. A lot of your really good goaltenders are from Canada, Sweden, Russia, Finland. So a lot of these other countries. But Ryan Miller, he's never won the Stanley Cup, but he has won gold medals. So like you could argue, hey, he's won championships. But when we talk about NHL and how it's the best hockey league in the world, and he's never won the Stanley Cup, arguably the hardest trophy in all of sports to win, then we have an argument here for him to be on this list, in my opinion. So,
Absolutely.
So Alan, let's kind of wrap it up here.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. We have a lot of things that we will talk about. We will go into our soccer rivalry, which we will talk about the Manchester Derby between Manchester City and Manchester United, break down the impact, especially in recent years, how now they're at a point where they are at an equal in the Premier League, and we will also break down the first Swedish player in the NHL, and that will be coming up, as Braydon mentioned, next week. Anything else that I am missing, Braydon?
No, guys, that's our episode list coming up. If you guys want to support us, the best way to do that is find us on social media. Pineapple22. We're also now officially on Twitter. We're at Pineapple22MED. The IA got cut off in the username, so but we're there. Guys, links in our bio. Please help us out. Buy some of our merchandise. And if you guys think there's other things we can do to help you guys out, please email us at pineapple22media@gmail.com. So yeah, other than help, we also have a Patreon page. So if you want to support us in that way, please do. There's lots of ways to support us besides just listening to our wonderful podcast, and we hope you guys continue to do so. We love the support you give us, and we couldn't be more thankful for that. So we're also on YouTube. So
yeah, check us out on YouTube. Big time.
All right, everybody. We'll sign off for today, and you have a great day.
Till next time.